Hello and welcome to chapter number 3 from your textbook, The Moments. And the name of the chapter is Iswaran The Storyteller. This is a very interesting story. The story was narrated to Ganesh by a young man, Mahendra, by name. He was a junior supervisor in a firm which offered on hire supervisors at various types of construction sites like factories, bridges, dams, and so on. So who narrates this story? This story is narrated to Ganesh by a young man, Mahendra. So these are the two principal characters, Ganesh and his worker, his servant, whose name was Mahendra. Now Ganesh was a junior supervisor in a firm. And what kind of firm was this? They used to hire various kinds of construction sites. They used to hire supervisors at different construction sites like factories, bridges, and so on. Now, what was Mahendra's job? Mahendra's job was to keep an eye on the activities at the work site. He had to keep moving from place to place every now and then as ordered by his head office, from a coal mining area to a railway bridge construction site, from there after a few months to a chemical plant which was coming up somewhere. So, what was the job that Mahendra had to do? Mahendra had to keep an eye on the activities. Jahan pe bhi work site hoti thi, he has to keep an eye on whatever was happening at that site. And he had his duty at a coal mining area, to a railway bridge construction site, and somewhere down the line to a chemical plant that was coming up. So at different places he got his job posted and he had to look after whatever was happening in that area. He was a bachelor. His needs were simple and he was able to adjust himself. He was a bachelor. His needs were simple and he was able to adjust himself to all kinds of odd conditions. Whether it was an ill-equipped circuit house or a makeshift canvas tent in the middle of a stone quarry. Now, he was unmarried and he had very simple needs. बहुत basic सी ज़रूरतें थी and he could adjust to all kind of conditions. चाहे वो एक circuit house में रहना हो या किसी एक makeshift canvas tent में, you know, where they put up a tent and then they kind of roll it up and they move to some other place. So he was used to staying in odd conditions. But one asset he had was his cook Iswaran. The cook was quite attached to Mahendra and followed him uncomplainingly wherever he was posted. But he had a cook and his name was Iswaran, and he would uncomplainingly go with him wherever he was posted. Wherever Mahendra was posted, Iswaran would go there without any complaints. He cooked for Mahendra, washed his clothes and chatted away with his master at night. He could weave out endless stories and anecdotes on varied subjects. So Mahendra had Iswaran as his cook and Iswaran used to do all the things for him. He would cook, he would wash his clothes, he would tell him a lot of stories, a lot of anecdotes. Anecdotes matlab choti kahaniyan. And he was full of those endless stories and anecdotes and he would tell all of these to Mahendra. Iswaran also had an amazing capacity to produce vegetables and cooking ingredients seemingly out of nowhere in the middle of a desolate landscape with no shops visible for miles around. He had so many other qualities, but he had a very good quality, which was to produce vegetables. He could grow vegetables anywhere in the middle of a desolate landscape. Desolate matlab bilkul khali land hota tha, wahan pe bhi he had the capacity to produce. He could grow vegetables absolutely anywhere. He would miraculously conjure up the most delicious dishes made with fresh vegetables within an hour of arriving at the zinc sheet shelter at the new workplace. And he would make up, you know, very delicious dishes anywhere, anytime. The moment he got all those vegetables, he would cook up some really nice delicacies at the workplace. Mahendra would be up early in the morning and leave for work after breakfast, carrying some prepared food with him. Meanwhile, Iswaran would tidy up the shed, wash the clothes and have a leisurely bath, pouring several buckets of water over his head muttering a prayer all the while. It would be lunchtime by then. After eating, he would read for a while before dozing off. The book was usually some popular Tamil thriller running to hundreds of pages. So this is what he had to do. Mahendra would go for work. He would leave for work early in the morning, and he would carry some food with him, some lunch with him. And what would Iswaran do in his free time? He would cook, he would clean up the vegetables, he would clean the shed, he would have a bath, he would keep muttering a prayer while he was having a bath, and by then it was lunchtime. So he used to have his lunch, and then he would read something and go back to sleep. And what kind of a book he used to read? He used to read some Tamil thriller which would run into hundreds of pages. Its imaginative descriptions and narrative flourishes would hold Iswaran in thrall. His own descriptions were greatly influenced by the Tamil authors that he read. Now, he used to read a lot of Tamil authors, and the way they would imagine various descriptions and narrative flourishes, the way they would imagine, जो उनकी imagination होती है, वैसे भी it's quite impeccable for all the authors and writers. They have a very, very advanced level of imagination. That's what I can say for authors, for writers and poets. And the Tamil authors also had it. So they would imagine a lot of things, and they would describe them also very, very well. And the way they would narrate the story was something that really used to lure Iswaran with him. And so that started to show in his own descriptions. So जैसे वो पढ़ता था, जिस किस्म के descriptions, जैसे वो लोगों की विशेषताएं बताता था या देखता था या पढ़ता था, that started to come out in his own descriptions also. So जैसे वो पढ़ता था, वो वैसा ही बोलना सीख गया था. He had started to speak in the same manner. He would describe things in the same way that he used to read. When he was narrating even the smallest of incidents, he would try to work in suspense and a surprise ending into the account. So what happened, that even if he is narrating a very small incident, so he would narrate it with a lot of suspense and with a lot of emotions and feelings. He would narrate it like that. Like if he had to say that he saw an uprooted tree on the highway, अगर उसे ये बताना है कि उसे एक उखड़ा हुआ पेड़ हाईवे पे दिखा, तो how would he explain that? He would say that the road was deserted and I was all alone. कि road was deserted, road बिल्कुल खाली थी and I was the only one alone. And hands out in a dramatic gesture, हाथ एकदम खोल करके, with his eyebrows arched, he would speak in such a manner with a lot of drama. Suddenly, I spotted something that looked like an enormous bushy beast lying across the road. I was half inclined to turn and go back, but as I came closer, I saw that it was a fallen tree with its dry branches spread out. But as I came closer, I saw that it was a fallen tree with its dry branches spread out. And if he had to speak that, he would say that I was alone on the road and I saw a beast. Beast matlab ek rakshas. I saw a beast on the road and I was about to turn. I was about to come back when I came close and I saw that it was a fallen tree. It was a fallen tree and the branches were all spread out. Mahendra would stretch himself back in his canvas chair and listen to Iswaran's tales uncritically. The place I come from is famous for timber, Iswaran would begin. There is a richly wooded forest all around. The logs are hauled on to the lorries by elephants. They are huge, well-fed beasts. So what would Mahendra do? Mahendra would sit back and listen to all the stories that Iswaran would tell him. And then one day he said that the place that I come from is very famous for timber. And there is a richly wooded forest. जहाँ पे मैं रहता हूँ वहाँ पे एक बहुत बड़ा सा forest है. And all the cutting and the logging of the trees in the forests is done by elephants. And they are huge, well-fed beasts. They are huge, वो बहुत बड़े हैं. Well-fed मतलब उन्हें अच्छा खिलाया जाता है. and they are like beasts. They are huge, well-fed beasts. When they turn wild, even the most experienced Mahout is not able to control them. After this prologue, Iswaran would launch into an elaborate anecdote involving an elephant. And then he said that if they go wild, then even the most experienced of the Mahouts will not be able to control them. And after this, he would begin with an anecdote. Anecdote मतलब एक short story जैसी, जो कि एक elephant जिसमें होता था, he would begin to describe such a story. One day, a tusker escaped from the timber yard and began to roam about, stamping on bushes, tearing up wild creepers and breaking branches at will. You know, sir, how an elephant behaves when it goes mad. Iswaran would get so caught up in the excitement of his own story that he would get up from the floor and jump about, stamping his feet in emulation of the mad elephant. And what did he see? He saw a tusker escaping from the timber yard. Usko ek tusker dikha. Who's a tusker? A tusker is a synonym for an elephant. He saw an elephant who started to roam about, stamping on bushes, झाड़ियों को stamp करता हुआ, tearing up wild creepers, छोटे छोटे जो creepers निकल आते हैं उनको literally उनको stamp करता हुआ, and breaking branches at will, and breaking all the branches. You see how an elephant behaves when it goes mad. And then Iswaran would get so caught up in his own story that he would get up from the floor and jump about, stamping his feet in emulation of the mad elephant. वो इतना involve हो जाता था उस story में कि he would get up and he would start behaving like that mad elephant. The elephant reached the outskirts of our town, breaking the fences down like matchsticks. He would continue. It came into the main road and smashed all the stalls selling fruits, mud pots and clothes. People ran helter-skelter in panic. The elephant now entered a school ground where children were playing, breaking through the brick wall. Now he continues his anecdote. He says that the elephant reached the outskirts of the town. Outskirts मतलब बाहर, बाहरी छोर जो होता है. शहर के बाहर तक वो elephant पहुंच गया था, and he was, smashing all the shops which were selling fruits and mud pots and clothes, and everybody was just about running here and there. They were all running here and there. They had panicked, and the elephant now reached a school ground. So now the elephant had managed to reach a school ground, and there were children playing and breaking through the brick wall. Children were playing there. All the boys ran into the classrooms and shut the doors tight. The beast grunted and wandered about, pulling out the football goal post, tearing down the volleyball net, kicking and flattening the drum kept for water, and uprooting the shrubs. And what happens? All the boys, they started to run here and there, right? And they shut their doors. उन्होंने बंद कर लिया, and the beast grunted and wandered about. The beast was looking at people. It went into the football ground and he tore down the volleyball net. उसने volleyball net को बिल्कुल नीचे गिरा दिया, and he kicked and flattened the drum for water and uprooted the shrubs. So he created a complete chaos there. Meanwhile, all the teachers had climbed up to the terrace of the school building. From there, they helplessly watched the depredations of the elephant. And what did the teachers do? The teachers ran away from there. They reached on the terrace, and they were seeing what all damage was happening in their school. There was not a soul below on the ground. The streets were empty, as if the inhabitants of the entire town had suddenly disappeared. The streets were all empty. Everybody had run here and there, and they had all hidden into their homes. I was studying in the junior class at that time and was watching the whole drama from the rooftop. I don't know what came over me. Suddenly, I grabbed a cane from the hands of one of the teachers and ran down the stairs and into the open. So what does Iswaran say? Iswaran says that he was in the junior class and he was watching everything from the rooftop. And then one idea struck him. He took a cane, from a stick, a cane stick from one of the teachers, and he was out into the open. The elephant grunted and menacingly swung a branch of a tree which it held in its trunk. It stamped its feet, kicking up a lot of mud and dust. It looked frightening, but I moved slowly towards it, stick in hand. And what does he say? He says that the elephant had a branch of a tree which he was holding in his trunk, and the elephant was really grunted. He kicked up, and a lot of dust was out. He was very angry, but then Iswaran slowly moved towards the elephant with a stick in his hand. People who were watching the scene hypnotized from nearby housetops. The elephant looked at me red-eyed, ready to rush towards me. It lifted its trunk and trumpeted loudly. At that moment, I moved forward and, mustering all my force, whacked its third toenail on the quick. The beast looked stunned for a moment, then it shivered from head to foot and collapsed. Now he is describing that everybody was hypnotized. They were just looking at what was happening. All the people from the nearby shops, in the school, everyone, they were just watching these two in action. The elephant was slowly moving towards him. He also moved towards the elephant, and he had that cane in his hand, and he whacked its third nail on the quick, and he hit the elephant on his third toenail. And then he suddenly started to shiver and the elephant collapsed. That's what Iswaran says. At this point, Iswaran would leave the story unfinished and get up mumbling, "I will be back after lighting the gas and warming up the dinner." Mahendra, who had been listening with rapt attention, would be left hanging. When he returned, Iswaran would not pick up the thread of the story right away. Now, what would Iswaran do? Iswaran would, tell till here, and then he would stop. And then he would get up and he would start to do all his things. And then when he would come back, Mahendra would again ask him that what happened after that. And then he would very casually say that, well, a veterinary doctor was summoned to revive the animal, or 2 days later, it was led away by its mahout to the jungle. So he would say all these things, that sometimes the doctor was called and the animal was revived, or there was a mahout who was called and he was taken away to the jungle. Well, how did you manage to do it, Iswaran? How did you bring down the beast? It has something to do with the Japanese art, I think, sir. Karate or jujitsu, it is called. I had read about it somewhere. It temporarily paralyzes the nervous system, you see. Now, Mahendra is very, very excited. He wants to know how was he able to, bring down the elephant. He being a small boy and there was this huge elephant. So, how did he do it? And what does Iswaran say? Iswaran say that I was able to do it with a Japanese art, जिसको बोलते हैं jujitsu. Not a day passed without Iswaran recounting some story packed with adventure, horror and suspense. Whether the story was credible or not, Mahendra enjoyed listening to it because of the inimitable way in which it was told. Every day, Iswaran would say some such story with a lot of fun, with a lot of adventure, a lot of drama, a lot of thrill, and Mahendra would enjoy listening to such stories. Not because it was true or it was false, we don't know that. Mahendra also did not know that the story was true or false, but because of the way Iswaran narrated the story, जैसे वो narrate करता था, उस वजह से Mahendra developed a lot of interest in his stories. Iswaran seemed to more than make up for the absence of a TV in Mahendra's living quarters. One morning, when Mahendra was having breakfast, Iswaran asked, "Can I make something special for dinner tonight, sir? After all, today is an auspicious day according to tradition. We prepare various delicacies to feed the spirits of our ancestors today, sir." Mahendra did not have a TV in his home, and Iswaran did make up for that TV because he would say so many things, so many stories to Mahendra. And one day he asked Mahendra that, can I make something special for dinner, because today is a very auspicious day as we feed our ancestors. We feed our ancestors, we feed the spirit of our ancestors. So can I make something special? That night, Mahendra enjoyed the most delicious dinner and complimented Iswaran on his culinary skills. He seemed very pleased, but unexpectedly launched into a most garish account involving the supernatural. Now, Mahendra really enjoyed the food that Iswaran cooked for him. And he thanked also that, you cook really well. Culinary skill ka matlab cooking skills. But then what happens? There is an account of something related to the supernatural. You know, sir, this entire factory area we are occupying was once a burial ground, he started. Mahendra was jerked out of the pleasant reverie he had drifted into after the satisfying meal. I knew on the first day itself when I saw a human skull lying on the path. Even now I come across a number of skulls and bones, Iswaran continued. Now he begins a story. And he says that, do you know, the place that we are living on was actually once a burial ground. And I knew it. And I saw a skull lying on the ground, and I happened to see such skulls and bones quite frequently. He went on to narrate how he sometimes saw ghosts at night. I'm not easily frightened by these things, sir. I'm a brave fellow. But one horrible ghost of a woman which appears off and on at midnight during the full moon. It is an ugly creature with matted hair and a shriveled face like a skeleton holding a fetus in its arms. And now he begins to talk about something supernatural. He says that I'm brave, I don't fear ghosts and all, but on a full moon night I have seen the ghost of a lady, like that of a skeleton holding a fetus, an unborn child in its arms. Mahendra shivered at the description and interrupted rather sharply. You are crazy, Iswaran. There are no such things as ghosts or spirits. It is all a figment of your imagination. Get your digestive system examined and maybe your head as well. Now, obviously, Mahendra was frightened to hear this. But he says, you're crazy, you're mad. You get yourself treated. There's nothing like this that exists. It is all your imagination that you're thinking. You're talking nonsense. He left the room and retired for the night, expecting Iswaran to sulk for a couple of days. But the next morning, he was surprised to find the cook as cheerful and talkative as ever. So he went away from there, and he thought that I am not going to find Iswaran because he'll be sulking. Sulking matlab usi thought mein rehna, upset rehna kuch samay tak. He thought that he's going to live like this. But he was surprised to see that Iswaran was there. He was as cheerful, as talkative, like always. From that day on, Mahendra, for all his brave talk, went to bed with a certain unease. Every night he peered into the darkness outside through the window next to his bed, trying to make sure that there was no movement of dark shapes in the vicinity. Now, even though Mahendra did show that brave talk, that I'm brave, I don't fear anyone, and there are no ghosts and spirits and all that, but every night he would go to sleep with a lot of unease. He made sure that there was no movement of any kind outside of the house. But he could only see a sea of darkness with the twinkling lights of the factory miles away. He had always liked to admire the milk-white landscape on full moon nights, but after hearing Iswaran's story of the female ghost, he avoided looking out of his window altogether when the moon was full. Iswaran had, narrated such stories to Mahendra that he was really scared. And previously he used to like that looking out of the window on a full moon night, but now he was very scared, and he would not look out at all from his bed. One night, Mahendra was woken up from his sleep by a low moan close to his window. At first, he put it down to a cat prowling around for mice, but the sound was too guttural for a cat. He resisted the curiosity to look out lest he should behold a sight which would stop his heart. And one night he hears a low moan. Moan matlab rone ki awaaz. And he doesn't want to go out. He doesn't want to see that who's there. Initially he thinks that it could be a cat who's looking for mice, because he did not have the courage to go out and see that whose moan was this. But the wailing became louder and less feline. He could not resist the temptation anymore. Lowering himself to the level of the windows sill, he looked out of the white sheet of moonlight outside. But slowly the sound started to increase, and now Mahendra was forced to look outside of the house. There, not too far away, was a dark, cloudy form clutching a bundle. It was like clouds, very dark in color, and it looked as if, it had something in its arms. Mahendra broke into a cold sweat and fell back on the pillow, panting. Now he was extremely exhausted, he was very frightened, and he lay down. As he gradually recovered from the ghastly experience, he began to reason with himself and finally concluded that it must have been some sort of auto-suggestion, some trick that his subconscious had played on him. He started to think that why am I seeing such things? What is it? And with a lot of contemplation, काफी सोचने के बाद उसने ये decide किया कि maybe उसका ये subconscious mind ये उसको दिखा रहा है. There is nothing like this, but because he had heard such a story, so he is thinking that as if somebody is standing there. By the time he had got up in the morning, had a bath and come out to have his breakfast, the horror of the previous night had faded from his memory. Iswaran greeted him at the door with his lunch packet and his bag. Just as Mahendra was stepping out, Iswaran grinned and said, "Sir, remember the other day when I was telling you about the female ghost with a fetus in its arms? You were so angry with me for imagining things. Well, you saw her yourself last night. I came running hearing the sound of moaning that was coming from your room." A chill went down Mahendra's spine. He did not wait for Iswaran to complete his sentence. He hurried away to his office and handed in his papers, resolving to leave the haunted place the very next day. And now, the next day, Iswaran comes with his lunch packet and all that, and he gives it to Mahendra. Mahendra had forgotten about the incident. He decided that he will not talk about it. But Iswaran himself says that that day when I told you about that incident, you had actually told me that I'm imagining. Now, you heard the moaning last night yourself? And Mahendra was terrified. He was petrified, and he went to his office and he filed for his papers. Let's look at the meanings. Enthrall, the state of being in someone's power. Depredations, attacks which are made to destroy something. Guttural sound, sound produced in the throat, harsh sounding. Feline, relating to cats or other members of the cat family. In what way is Iswaran an asset to Mahendra? Asset matlab ek achhi cheez to Mahendra. Iswaran was an obedient person. He was Mahendra's cook. He was very caring and hardworking. He did all the jobs such as cooking meal, washing clothes and chatting with Mahendra at night. He obeyed his master with full dedication. So he was an asset to Mahendra. How does Iswaran describe the uprooted tree on the highway? What effect does he want to create in his listeners? Iswaran was greatly influenced by the Tamil authors. He was in the habit of creating suspense. He had the quality of narrating even the smallest incident in impressive way. He presented the incident related to the uprooted tree on the highway in a dramatic way. He was alone and the road was deserted. He saw something that looked like an enormous beast lying across the road. But as soon as he came closer, he found there nothing but a fallen tree. His main purpose was to create suspense and surprise. How does he narrate the story of the tusker? Does it appear to be plausible? Iswaran narrated the story of the tusker exaggeratedly. Exaggerated matlab bada chada ke batana. The tusker, having escaped from the timber yard, stamped on bushes, tore up wild creepers and broke the branches at his will. The elephant became uncontrollable and entered the school ground. It created chaos there. Everyone in the school tried to escape. No one dared to face the tusker. In the meantime, Iswaran grabbed a cane from a teacher and moved towards the elephant. He hit its third toenail and the beast collapsed. He claimed that he had used the Japanese art to control the tusker. But this story seems totally false, as it is very difficult to believe that a child can control a mad elephant. Why does the author say that Iswaran seemed to more than make up for the absence of a TV in Mahendra's living quarters? Iswaran was an expert in telling adventurous and mysterious stories in a dramatic way. It was his daily routine to entertain Mahendra at night. Mahendra could listen to and watch the development of the story. Thus, Iswaran seemed to more than make up for the absence of a TV. Mahendra calls ghosts or spirits a figment of the imagination. What happens to him on a full moon night? Mahendra calls ghosts or spirits a figment of the imagination, as he did not believe in ghosts. One day, Iswaran told him about a female ghost holding a fetus in her arms. On a full moon night, he woke up from his sleep and looked outside the window. He got shocked to see the same figure and began to sweat profusely. Can you think of some other ending for the story? This is my answer. The present story ends with Mahendra's resolve to leave the haunted place. But it is not the appropriate ending. Mahendra should not have decided to leave the haunted place without knowing the reality. The story could end like this. Courageously, Mahendra approached the woman and tried to know the reality. As soon as Mahendra caught the woman, it became the revelation of the mystery. It was none but Iswaran in the guise of a ghost of woman. So that was my version of the story. This was the end of the third chapter. Stay tuned in for the next chapter. Thank you so much.